All right, folks, welcome to another live Monday event. We have a lot of people already asking questions, so thank you for joining. If this is your first time, we spend the next hour between 4 and 5 p.m. local time here in Arizona answering all your drone questions, one after the other. I don't know how many questions we answer every week, but it's quite a few. I see some familiar faces in here. We have someone. We have James M. Burns family, still here. John Jackson, Mad Props Media, Robert Patterson, Tim Colton, Thor Inspired, here every week. Rick Hone. We have Curtis Warren, also here quite a bit. Jim Pace, Ronald Miller, Robert Droner. We have John Jackson, Decon FPV, who's not very far from us. We have Northern Drone Guy. We have Super 8mm 1, Jim T, Vera 1 Production. Lots of folks. Bobby Casey Aerial, Texas Drone Company. That would be Mr. Jared, our mapping guy, our mapping instructor. We have James Von Boeven, who has been helping us on a big project recently. Thanks, James, for being here. Carlos Lopez. Lots of people. Craig Goodspeed. DE, Times Leader Video. Anyway, lots of folks. We will be answering the questions. I'm going to get started. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about. One of them is be sure to tune in on Friday for news update. We have a big announcement. I'm excited about this. So if you gotta watch one, that's the one. There's especially if you're a student, this is a big new thing that we're releasing, and I'm really excited about it. So make sure that you watch. And there was a question last week, and DJI just released a new Mini 4 and I think Mini 4 for sure update that made remote ID that made the drone not remote ID compliant if you put the smaller battery in it. So if the weight of the aircraft is 250 or less, it no longer broadcasts remote ID. It senses when the big battery is put in, and then it does broadcast remote ID. And as a result, some of you might be excited about this. Some of you may not be excited about this, because if you're a Part 107 pilot, then it means that you're going to have to get a module for the Mini 4 and the Mini 4 Pro in order to be remote ID compliant if you use the smaller batteries. Now, I personally don't think it is compliant with the FAA regulation, because it changes the approval. They were approved to be remote ID compliant for that drone, and now it's no longer remote ID compliant, even though it's on the DOC list. So there's some issues there. I don't know. We'll see if the FAA releases a statement, or even possibly rescinds the approval for the Mini. I don't have any data on that. I'm just reading the regulation and making my own interpretation here. But I thought that was a big deal that they did this, and it's kind of a single line in the in the new release that says it does that kind of stuff. So no bueno. Well, at least for Part 107 pilot. I think if you're a recreational pilot, you're probably happy because the drone is no longer broadcasting when it's not supposed to. So I think it's a double-edged sword. Burns family says, I have a DJI Spark and sometimes it flies away. How can I fix it? The Spark. I don't know, actually. That's a good question. I'd have to figure out why it's doing that in the first place, but I'm going to guess the Spark, I think, has a Wi-Fi connection, if I remember correctly. That's one of the DJI drone that we never owned, but the initial Mini had a Wi-Fi connection, and so I'm guessing the Spark also had a Wi-Fi connection. So that's probably what the problem is. It's losing the connection and then just doing whatever. It might be time for a new drone. I hate to say it this way, but if that's the case. John Jackson says, let's see, where did it go? Night flight question. Other than strobe, what requirements are there? Any from daylight ops, like 3 statute mile visibility? All the regulation that apply during the day also apply at night. Let's put it this way. So no additional regulation other than adding the strobe light. But yeah, you need to do everything else that you would do during the day. Is there a difference in the distance that you must stay from people between a mini drone and a larger drone, or are they the same? The rule for flying over people is just that it's being over someone. So if you're, as long as you're not directly over them, it doesn't matter if it's a small drone or a big drone. Now, I will say this: you also need to be careful, because if you're flying near someone and flying in their direction and you lose a motor or the battery or whatever, and the drone continues to fall, it's going to continue to go forward. If it hits someone on the ground, you're going to be in trouble, even though you were not flying directly on top of them. So just keep that in mind. Well, you probably were not until it's over someone and then it hits them, which means that you were over them at one point. Can you do night flying under recreational flying? Yes, you can. Or is night flying only permitted under Part 1.7? If permitted under recreational flying, I assume you need to follow CBO guidelines that permit it. Yep, absolutely, Rick, you get it. You need to follow community-based organization guidelines for flying at night. Most but one require a light that's visible from 3 statute miles, just like it does under Part 107. I say all but one. There's a little fine print in the FPV Freedom Coalition guidelines that you need to take a look into. But yeah, that's otherwise, yes, all of them require it. Can I change the light color on my Mavic Air 2S so that I have red-green nav lights? Yes. Why don't drones come in with aircraft lights already installed? You cannot change the lights that are provided by DJI on that drone that are on the antenna or on the legs, but you can install your own lights that have green and red on one side and the other. So it would be red on the left, green on the right to be like an aircraft. We do that on our larger drone because it's easier to see the orientation at night. But yeah, you'd have to add additional light, and there's no regulation against it. Mini 4 Pro with the Firehouse strobe puts me over 250 gram if I fly with standard battery. I won't be remote ID compliant with new updates. What should I do? Unfortunately, Ronald, you need to, if you're flying recreationally, which I'm guessing you are, you're going to need to register the drone, and then you're going to need to put a module on top of it, or buy the big battery and then fly with the bigger battery, which I know is not financially always an option. Luckcard says, what are some good national, local organization we can support for positive drone awareness and drone advocacy? That would be the the DSPA, Drone Service Provider Alliance. I don't know if Vic, I haven't seen Vic in the comment, but Vic is here quite a bit. Vic Moss, he's very vocal. He helps a lot of folks through the DSPA, Drone Service Provider Alliance. So it's dspalliance.org. You can make a small donation every month or pay for the monthly payment. We donate to them every month because we believe in what they do. They help you and they help us, but they help our students a lot. So when we have an issue with, like for example, right now, Vic has been fighting the proposed regulation in St. Louis, Missouri, and he does that with Drone Service Provider Alliance. So a good one. And then DAA is another one, the Drone Advocacy Alliance. This one is one that we support at Pilot Institute. It's a consortium of various companies in the industry that believe in your right to choose whatever drone you want for whatever mission you're doing. And we're going to keep fighting for that. We work with DJI to do that as well as part of the DAA. There was actually a news recently, at the end of last week, from AUVSI. Now, you may not be familiar with AUVSI, but it's an organization that pretends to be a voice for drone pilots. And unfortunately, with their latest press release, I can't say that they speak for myself anymore. So they decided that they were going to side with the China scare movement, and I can be behind that. So I canceled my trip to AUVSI. They have an event every year. We went there last year. We spent tens of thousands of dollars having a booth at AUVSI. It's called Exponential. I will not be there this year. I'm not going to be there. I canceled my tickets. I canceled the hotel, and we're not going to have a booth there. So I'm deciding to vote with my money, and that's the way that AUVSI is is spending the dollars that we gave them by having a booth, then that's not going to happen again, at least not from Pilot Institute. Question: I shot a commercial drone footage in another country and I use it in the US without having a 107. Will this be considered illegal? No. Part 107 only applies in the United States. So whatever you do in that country, make sure that you follow the rules in that country. So if they have a Part 107 equivalent in that country, then you would need to have that in order to collect that footage to not be illegal. So I don't know where that was, but you make sure you follow those rules. Using a Mini 4 Pro, if you added a remote ID module, it's now over 249 grams. Therefore, it must be registered if you want it to be flown in controlled airspace, and it must have your Part 107 certification. So Jim T is asking that question. So there's always confusion here. If your drone is less than 249 grams and you fly it for recreational purposes, you do not need to have registration, which means you also do not need to have remote ID. So there's no reason to put a remote ID module on it because it doesn't need it. So you would not be in a situation where you put a remote ID on top of it, because then it wouldn't take you over 249 grams. So it's not really, it's a non-issue in a certain way. Now, what could be an issue is what the gentleman asked earlier. I don't remember his name, Ronald. Where he says that he has to fly at night recreationally. Now he puts a light on top of his drone. Now that takes it over 249 grams. Now that's an issue because now he needs to have remote ID because it's over 249 grams, even though it's flown for recreational purposes. It's dumb, I know, but that's how the rule is written. Northern Drone Guy said, would a good car wax make my drone go faster? I don't know. That's a Mythbuster test right there. I look forward to the video and see the difference. But it's called skin friction. It's like this desk, right? This desk is actually made of an airplane wing, and it's got rivets. Well, it's a fake one, but this one has screws. Hold on, the cookie's trying to kill me. It's not crumble. That's what happens when you eat cookies right before going live. You can still see it right here. Yeah, it's called skin friction. So having a car wax technically would remove skin friction to a certain extent. Carlos says, good evening, Greg. My question is, how do I find out local regulation rules for flying my drone once I get permission from Lance? So that's difficult, by the way. So a couple of years ago, about last year, I think, we released a wiki page. I think Jason back here is going to put a link to the wiki. There you can find the local regulation per city, per state, wherever you want to fly. And since it's a wiki page, it means that you can actually update the data and help us keep it up to date. So if you find something that's not in there, submit it to us, and we'll keep it updated for everyone. It's kind of a community event, a community effort, if you want. Uza says, or it's 00za. If you have visual line of sight when you crash into a manned aircraft, are you liable if it was under 400 feet? Yes, you would be. Remember, manned aircraft can fly and will fly under 400 feet, especially helicopters. So if you fly into a manned aircraft, it means that you didn't give way to the manned aircraft when you were supposed to. So yes, you would 100% be liable, even if you had line of sight. But quite frankly, if you had line of sight, technically, you should be able to avoid crashing into the aircraft. And I know it's not always the case, but that's kind of the theory at least. Is the DJI Mavic Air 2 remote ID compliant? Yes. I unfortunately, the more they add to that list of compliance, the more difficult it gets for me to remember all of them. But I'm 99% sure the Air 2. I'm going to put a link here for you to verify that. So you can go to this. It's the DOC, the Declaration of Compliance list. It will show you what's remote ID compliant. So just type in Mavic Air 2 Mavic Air 2 in there, and it will pop up if it's in there. But I'm pretty sure it is. Craig Goodspeed says, can you clarify the recent announcement about before you fly? Yes. So before you fly, is an interesting thing from the FAA. So you may have heard me say the Before You Fly app is going away, and that's why we created Air Aware with the folks at Aloft. The Before You Fly program is not going away. So the FAA is creating this Before You Fly program where they're bringing more people in to be compliant with the program, if you want. So they'll have a component called Before You Fly that's going to be integrated with other lens providers. And we don't have all the details yet because the FAA made a vague announcement recently, but we'll know more, I think, very soon about this. So, and we have also more updates on AirWare. We have an update right around the corner. I was talking to Aloft last week, and it's pretty exciting. So, we'll actually have things that other people will not have in the app, which is cool. Kevin Murphy says, "Hello, I'm a new pilot and recently retired." Me too. No. Just passed the Part 107 exam last week. I'd love to get involved in mapping. Part-time would be ideal. What is the best way to get started with mapping? I'm not here to sell courses, Kevin, but we do have a course, a beginner's course that you can get to help you get started with mapping. We have that question a lot. So what we did is we worked with Jared, who's in the chat in here. He's where is he? Texas Drone Company. You'll see him in here, and that's how you learn to get started. That's the reason we build this course with Jared, because Jared does that for a living, and he explains to you how you can do all the mapping. We have one course that you can get, or we have 3 courses that you can buy as a bundle. Like I said, I hate sending people to a paid course, but that's really the best way to do it. It's fairly affordable. I think the single course is $99 if you want to buy that. And you have 30 days to try it. If you don't like it or if it's something you don't want to do, we'll give you a refund. Dorfmeister says, is Remote ID going to be delayed again? I don't think so. I'm still not seeing those $50 modules. What's available in the US is kind of disappointing. Jason, help me with the name here. He's going to put a link in the what's there's a Remote ID module that just came up not too long ago. It's Z something. Z. Any of you know? Anybody in the audience knows? Anyways, I'm not going to find it. And you may have known by now after watching this live quite a bit. I have an issue with name of companies, name of people. Unfortunately, I have a very hard time remembering some of this stuff. I'm looking through my email because they send quite a few emails, and I should remember because they send so many emails. But it's the cheapest one right now. Zing. There we go. I knew it started with a Z. Zing drone solution. ZRID. They made a light module that is Remote ID approved now. It's $85. This is the cheapest one you'll find. At the moment, it's made in the US as well. So there you go. Jason put the link in there. So Zing drones is probably where you want to go. I have to admit, we haven't tested it. I think we have the other module that was more expensive. We got it from them. We received it not too long ago. But yeah, that's not $50. And I know it's not $50, but it's the cheapest at the moment. That's self-sustained. You can also look at the flight test module, but that one needs power. So if you know how to tinker, you'll save a little bit of money as well. You'll just have to add a little bit of power. Matt Props Media says, when I re-register my drone under Part 107, does that fee apply to each drone or $5 for the lot? Under Part 107, it's $5 per drone. You will get a registration number for each of the drones that is flown under Part 107. Is Remote ID required for a hobby? Robert Patterson. Robert, it is required for any drone that is over 250 grams, 0.55 pounds, that is flown under recreational purposes. Okay? So, yep, that's even if it's flown for fun. Next, whoa, we're getting down to the bottom of the list here. Will you have any update to the Remote ID video from August 31st? Available module pricing, sort of like Q from Dorfmeisters. Oh, yeah. There's a few more Remote ID modules that have been added since we did that video. We might do an update. What we really want to do is do a full test of the distance. And then we have a few more tests. Unfortunately, it's kind of winter here in Arizona. And I know it sounds weird because you think Arizona is always warm, but we live in the cold part of Arizona. So doing an outdoor test is not always easy in the winter. So maybe when the weather is better, although it was 60 degrees this weekend. So it's kind of weird. But we're getting into February, which is usually the snowy month and the crummy month. So we'll see. Is Remote ID still set to launch on March 2024? Let's put it this way. Remote ID was never canceled. Enforcement by the FAA was delayed. So it still is technically required right now. It's just that if you have an excuse for why you can comply, and saying I don't want to comply is not an excuse, it really is in place. So the FAA delayed enforcement until March. I don't think they're going to delay again. I don't have any insider information on this, but I'm guessing that there is enough modules available out there for people. I haven't really seen any complaints about people not getting their modules, so I don't know. It's a good question. When March comes around the corner, we're February now. When March comes around the corner, we'll maybe poll people again like we did in December and see. Next, Marcus says, thanks for having an amazing course. You're very welcome. Passed my 107 a couple of years ago with your help. Working on the drone business at the moment. So is there a benefit to getting a Mini 4 for promotional media versus my Mavic 2 Pro? Mavic 2 versus a Mini 4. I still think the Mavic 2 is highly capable. I don't think that I would sell that for a Mini 4. There's probably a slight advantage of image quality from the Mini 4 as far as sharpness, but the Mavic 2 is still a great platform. So if you're doing social media stuff, I would say probably not a good reason to upgrade. Now, with that being said, if you need an excuse, the Mini 4 would be a great backup drone. So you never go out with only one drone, right? One is none, and then two is one. So in case something happens, you might want to have a Mini 4 Pro in your bag, and then you can compare and see which one you like better. But yeah. Will getting my Part 107 for the challenge, no intent to fly commercial purposes, expose you to being held to a higher standard when flying recreationally? No. As a matter of fact, Dennis, I would say quite the opposite. If you wanted to fly for recreational purposes, and let's say that, okay, so here's a scenario. You're flying for recreational purposes, and you don't have a Part 107. Recreational rules are a carve-out of Part 107. The rules technically to fly a drone in the United States are Part 107 rules for everyone. The FAA said, well, we'll make an exception. If you meet these 8 rules, then all of them, then you qualify for the exemption under 49 USC 44809. But anytime you don't meet one of these rules, then you automatically fall under Part 107. So what does that mean? You're flying under recreational rules, and then you lose visual line of sight, and you hit a building and you cause damage, and they find your drone, and they know who you are because you have a registration on it. So then all of a sudden the FAA comes back and does an investigation because it costs, a certain amount of money. And the FAA inspector is going to say, well, you weren't flying visual line of sight because from where you were standing and from where the drone crashed, there's no way. There was a tree, there was a mountain, you were 2 miles away, whatever it was. Now the FAA says, guess what? You're not flying under recreational rules anymore because you're not following the visual line of sight rule under 49 USC 44809, which means that by default, now your flight falls under Part 107. So now the FAA says, well, this flight was conducted under Part 107. Your drone wasn't registered under Part 107. You don't have a remote pilot certificate. Boom, that's 2 violations right here. Now they're still going to get you on the visual line of sight rules, but the bottom line is they can come and after you. And if you have your Part 107, you can say, well, I do have that at least. Well, maybe I broke this visual line of sight rule, but at least I had my remote pilot certificate. At least my drone was registered. You see where I'm going with this? So that's kind of the bottom line. I'm going to stop my watch here from notification. I apologize. I should do that before those live. Oh, that's the wrong button. My phone is ringing in the other room. There you go. My watch keeps buzzing because Jason is copy pasting all the questions in here. So yeah, to go back to that. So is there an advantage to getting it? Yes, absolutely. And who knows? Somebody might come to you and say, "Hey, can you do this footage for me?" And you say, "Well, yeah, I can because I have Part 107." So then you have it. I have a DJI Mavic Air 2. Is it already equipped with remote ID? Yes, Rich, I think it is. Look up a little bit. There's a link to the DOC page that's going to show you if it's compliant, but I'm pretty sure it is. Question for the Pilot Institute staff. With Greg admitting he has issues with names, does he run down all your name like my grandfather and all of his great-grandchildren? Oh, we have that short queued up. Yeah, let's go ahead and show that short, I guess. Although that was not the issue really when I did that, but yeah. So when I'm sitting, this is a funny thing. When I'm sitting here, I have Ethan right in front of me because Ethan produces these videos and he's behind the screen. I have Ben right here. Ben is usually making snarky comments over there, and usually there's a blanket right here, a sound blanket, so we don't hear noise coming from other places. And right behind it, there is whatever his name is. No, just kidding. There's Ben. Ben is right here, and then Zach. Bo is right here, and then Zach. See, there we go, perfect. Bo is over here, and the problem is that we have Ben, Ben, and we have Bo, Bo. So it's like the B word, and then we have Zach all the way in the corner over there. So we have Ben. We did this. What was I recording? I was recording something. And then I basically said, "Oh yeah, and your name is Ethan, or your name is Ben, or your name is whatever." And I wasn't really pointing at Bo, but that's. Can you show the actual video? So Bo edited a short little video here for you. Oh, it's not playing yet. Oh, something else. Oh no, we can't see it. Okay, well maybe we'll figure it out later. But yes, to answer your question, very difficult. I don't know why. Very difficult with names. And the problem is too, it's going to sound very pompous, but I do meet a lot of people when we go to trade shows. I do meet a lot of people in the industry, and I don't always remember their names just because I have a hard time with names. I think a lot of people have a hard time with names. I can see someone and know exactly what they do and who they represent, but finding their name right away is very difficult for me. So even with employees sometimes, because we have.
But otherwise, when you have
as well, we have Jason, Johan, we have Jesse, we have who else do we have? We have a lot of names with J. There's another one. Who's the other one? Johan? Yeah, Johan, Jesse. I see something on the screen. Oh. My fat face was on there. So anyways, yes. And I have 3 kids. I'm still fairly good, but the other day I called one of the kids the wrong name. So it happens. My grandma did that. My mom does that. Because I'm not with them. My brother is. So when I go back, I get called my brother's name a lot. Okay, Mad Props Media says, is there a path for self-build FPV to be remote ID compliant for Part 107? Very difficult at this stage because you need to have standard remote ID available in order to be technically compliant. So if you build your own drone for Part 107 use, you're not considered a home builder or a whatever the term they use in the regulation. So it means that you are considered a manufacturer just like DJI or Autel. And so that means that you need to come up with your own remote ID solution, standard remote ID, which means that it needs to broadcast the location of the pilot. I am not aware of any technology at the moment that can be used to do that. I think somebody said that there is one, but I haven't been able to test it. So the best next solution, because it doesn't exist, is either you don't fly your drone, which is not going to happen, or you put a module on top. And then you argue with the FAA if they want to argue. And that's going to be my option. If we build a new drone, I will put a remote ID module on it. It's going to be remote ID compliant via module. It's not going to show the actual location of the pilot all the time, but it's the next closest thing to what's available. I'm not going to stop flying home built drones because of that. I'll tell you, it's just how it is. So we can have a discussion as to, what's the purpose of remote ID. I think I meet most of the requirements of what the purpose of remote ID is. Close enough for government work in this case. Sorry to say it. Not sorry. Texas Arch Drone Guy says, curious why spend time and resources for remote ID distance test when the FAA does not mandate any minimum distance for the remote ID module? That's a good question. Mostly because it gets us out of the office making a video and using our BVLOS waivers. That's the primary reason to goof around. Now, we were going to be doing another test at the same time. We were actually going to be testing a range test for drones because we can do it legally. And so we were going to do an actual range test. And at the same time, we were going to test remote ID. But that's a great question. There's no requirement from the FAA for distance. Now, some people like to buy the module that's going to broadcast the furthest because that's kind of a requirement maybe for their waiver or whatever it is. So yeah, something to, but yeah, otherwise for the average person, it doesn't matter. What is the average time your student take to complete your Part 107 training? We did a test. We did a poll a couple years ago. It's been a while since we've done it. At the time, most people said they were spending about 30 days to do the training. A lot of our students want to do the training in depth, so that's why it takes that long. We've had people do it in a few days. We've had people do it in 2 weeks. A lot of people doing in 2 weeks. We have a little 2-week program that you can do, which is getting a cool upgrade pretty soon. More on that very soon. But yeah, so about a month, I think, is what people were saying. Do we know how the FAA came up with 249 grams as the minimum weight for having a drone registered? Has anyone approached the FAA about increasing this weight enough to compensate for a remote ID module? That Greg Nugent asked that question. There is a story behind why the 250 is there, and why it was used for registration. I'm not sure. Quite frankly, that was done by Congress. So finding any kind of logic behind it is pointless. Congress doesn't use logic, and so not something that we should be even trying to solve. The 249 gram has a background, and I did an interview of names. Brandon Schulman from DJI, formerly DJI, and he on Pixel Drone Show, and he had told us the reason behind it, but I can't remember it at the moment. We were talking about this recently. Travis says, any word on talks with the FAA? Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, back to Greg's question. He said, any talk with the FAA to try to change it? Unfortunately, the FAA doesn't have a say on that. This would have to come from Congress. They would be the ones that have to change it. Congress tells the FAA to make regulation. Any word on talks with the FAA and professional support organizations like the MLB, NFL on policy with TFR extensions? Yes, we are actually. I'm part of a group that is working on this, and more on that soon. But we do have people working on that to try to make something more sensible with these TFRs. On the FAA Drone Zone, can you renew your Part 107 fee? Is that still the case? Ronald. Okay. The Part 107 currency can be done on the FAA website on faasafety.gov. I'm going to put a link down in the description here. It's ALC 677, and you're going to have to go take that course and do that every 2 years. Your certificate doesn't expire, your currency expires. So you're going to have to go and get current every 2 years using this link right here. Next, where are we at? Is the Holy Stone Remote ID good or bad? I know you have had limited comments on the unit. I'll tell you what my issue is with the Remote ID, the Holy Stone Remote ID module. It's the fact that you can turn it on or off inside of the device. So The device, when you get it, you have to activate it. And when you activate it, you can deactivate it and just put it on top of your drone and it doesn't broadcast. And that's an issue because it's not a temper proof device. It's a device that you can turn on and off at will. I know you can, on most devices, you have an on off button. This is different. You can turn it on and it's not broadcasting because it's not set up, but it still shows as being turned on. That is questionable as far as whether or not it is compliant. The reason I have not mentioned or tried to get behind that module is because if somebody at the FAA found out, they could remove that approval, which means that if you bought it, you'd be SOL. And so I don't want that. So I don't want to recommend it because it's cheap, because I still believe there's a possibility that it is not fully compliant, even though it has a DOC, a declaration of compliance. Now you're going to say, how's that possible? How can it have a DOC and not be compliant? Well, the FAA doesn't verify anything when they approve these remote ID module. I paused when I said anything because they don't. They get an application that says, we certify that this thing is compliant, rubber stamp it, and they do. And they don't verify. And should they? I don't know. You'd think so. Yeah, probably, but they don't. So is it possible that this thing is not compliant? And then sometimes they come back and say it's no longer compliant. We made a mistake. And then you're out of $60 or whatever whatever it was, $80. And that would suck. Then you have an $80 paperweight. So that's why I haven't recommended it. I've been trying to not mention it, but maybe it's a good thing that I do. Or I may be wrong. I also may be wrong. It could be fully compliant, but the way that I read the regulation, it's an issue. If the government agency is seeking a COA to fly a UAS at a stadium during an event, do also need permission from that venue. So, Khalid is asking, if you are seeking a COA to fly during an event, I'm guessing there's going to be a TFR there, then more than likely the TFR is put in place by the venue. So you would get permission from them to fly there. But yes, you would more than likely be on their property. And because they're in charge of the TFR, you would want to tell them. It all depends on how the TFR is set up. If you're flying from their property, you will need their approval. If you're flying from across the street, to avoid doing that, I wouldn't. I would go talk to them and get approval and say, hey, listen, I have approval to fly in here. And then they should let you fly, especially as a government agency. Jim T says, just to confirm, if you put the larger battery into the Mini 4 Pro, it will now have built-in remote ID recognition and you don't need an additional module. Yes, that is correct, Jim. Only the smaller battery turns off remote ID. I registered my drone as a recreational pilot. Now I have Part 107 cert. Do I need to re-register it? The answer is yes. You need to re-register it and then submit it and then get it approved. Next, Carlos says, I registered my drone. Nope, that just read that. Rick says, if you fly both recreationally and Part 107, you need to display both registration numbers. No, the FAA came back and said, just put the Part 107 number on there. That's good enough. Kevin Murphy says, just curious if you saw a drone incident just before the game. Every time somebody flies a drone over a sports game, I get emails within seconds. I have my posse of all of you students and people that watch that have my email that send me a message right away. So yes, I knew probably within seconds of that thing happening. I had like 3 emails within 10 minutes of, and then after that, within the hour, I probably get another 15 emails. So yeah, I didn't see it live because I don't watch ball games, but yeah, it's just one of those don't be that guy segments that we'll talk about on Friday. Is PSI still doing the Part 107 testing? Yes, Bill Watson, absolutely. They're the only ones that are approved by the FAA, government-issued monopoly. Yep, they are. It's the UAG exam. That's what it's called, Unmanned Aircraft General. Why is Yuma, Arizona airspace closed near the airport? Yuma, well, I'm pretty sure Yuma is a class Delta. Let me look at that real quick. Uh, uh, y- yeah, we might. Let's do that actually. Hold on. Let me. I've been working on our secret project, and I don't want to show you my tabs. uh, Let me log in. I don't see it. I don't see it. No, it would still show anyway. Let me look at Yuma in the meantime. Oh, I see. Yes. Well, oh, that's interesting. So Yuma, let's see if I can share with this with you guys. No, I still don't see it. That's weird. I see the Samsung TVs, but I don't see. Um, so Yuma, to answer your question, is looks like a class Delta, and it's all red, which means the Lance is not approved there. It's one of those last few airports in the country that doesn't have Lance approval. It could be because it's a private tower, not an FAA tower. It could be because there is yep, that's what it is. There's a Marine Corps air station there, but it's also an international airport. So I don't know. I don't know who controls it. I don't know if it's a military airport. I'm not familiar. Yuma is not terribly far from us, but I'm guessing it's because it's got some military stuff going on that it's under military airspace control, which is why it would show as not Lance approved. There's a lot of airports that are military bases that are not part of Lance. So you can still get approval. Yeah, somebody says in the comments it's a Marine base. You can still get approval there by using the FA drone zone. So that's what I would do. I would go and submit it through the drone zone. They might actually give you a long-term approval to fly there for a while. So the Air Aware app you're recommending does not allow for downloading the maps. Bad when you fly in remote. Oh, that's a good point. You know what? Bike rides. I'm gonna mention that to Aloft and see if we can have a way to download the data. Interesting. Huh. Yep. NFL game was delayed by a drone. Blah blah blah. Broadcaster said it was not their drone. Are the network covered by the TFR? So the TFR covers everyone who's not approved to fly in there. So the network would be covered by would be they would be subject to the TFR, but they could get approval to fly in the TFR. TFR doesn't mean nobody flies. It means that nobody who's been approved can fly. How much is Pilot Institute minimum service to create a waiver application? Drew, email us because it really depends on the type of waiver. If it's a waiver to fly beyond visual line of sight while flying over people and carrying packages, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if we do just a simple whatever fly VLOS waiver or something like that. So email us at where does that go? That goes to email us at contact@pilotinstitute.com and we'll get it to the right people. Am I allowed to take off, land my drone within a Palm Beach County park? The drone rules seem a bit counteract each other. Palm Beach County Municipal says no one operating, directing, or responsible for any aircraft, seaplane, helicopter, glider, balloon, dirigible, blah, 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 shall take off. So, US is an aircraft, so I'm guessing, yeah. I would call them. They're probably going to tell you no, but technically, if I read this, the short thing that you posted here, an aircraft, a UAS is an aircraft, so that would apply to UAS as well. What's a good way to get involved with drone search and rescue, Marcus? Marcus, hold that question until next week, if you don't mind. We're gonna have a way to answer your question next week. More on that very soon. Marcus, hopefully you're a student with us and you'll get the notification. But based on the announcement I'm going to make on Friday, something related to that will be related to that as well. So that's all I can say right now. But um, in short, go talk to the search and rescue folks. But we'll have a guest next week in the office that specializes in search and rescue, and I'm hoping to do an event with them. So that's what this is about. Have a question on the pilot side. I bought the private pilot made easy, and you posted in the Facebook group that if you buy, you would get airplane maneuvers added. How do I get that added? That should have been automated, but if it didn't work, there was a little transition where we are having issues. Email me or email contact at pilotinstitute.com, and we'll make it right for you. Do you need a certificate to do inspections or solar inspections? No, there is no inspection certificates. Now, your client might require that you have certain level of experience and of course insurance, but as far as inspection certificate, no, there is really your state might require it as well. As far as I know, there is no such thing. With the networks using drone, are they putting the Goodyear blimp out of business? Yeah, probably. I think the Goodyear blimp is just one of these classic things that you'll continue to see because it's cool and it's visible and it's just up there. But as far as images, yeah, more than likely not necessary to do it from a blimp. It's time for a penny snack. Where's Penny? Oh, she's right there. Yeah, water break. Did we have the music like Ben did last week? Penny? All right. We get to the question. That's why it was. Ethan brought treats for Penny. Okay. We have. If you record, she's behind the screen. Oh, there she is. If you record your kid's soccer from the proper distance and the video only for yourself, can you do as a hobbyist? Yeah, if you're just recording your kid's video, that's 100% a recreational activity. Come over here. Yep, that's my cookie. Penny. Okay, I need 50 commercial hours to get hired as a pilot with this company. What's the best way to acquire those hours without going into business for myself? Commercial hours, that's an interesting requirement. I don't know, drone base, like, or whatever their name is now, side view. Yeah, or you can do discounted real estate for friends or for a realtor locally. Yeah, that's interesting. What qualifies as a commercial hour, I guess, but yeah, that's interesting. The droney guy says, I know DJI tracks your hours. How many hours do you need to have to be considered an experienced drone pilot? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think experience depends on the person. I've seen this with even flying airplanes where you have people that have 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours and they're no better than someone with 500 hours. So I don't know. I've never been a believer that hours alone is a depictor of experience, good experience. It might mean that you're experienced with flying, but may not mean that you're good. So I don't know. I think that's difficult. And I don't think the industry has really thought about this because there's never really been hour requirements for anything other than people hiring, like Mitchell said in the previous question. But yeah, that's an interesting one. You gonna eat those? How would I take my drone to a different country when I traveled like India? I would say before you do, make sure you do some research and make sure that they will let you in the country with a drone and make sure you're allowed to fly it there. Um, I think, and I don't know if it's still true, but countries like in Vietnam, for example, where there's a lot of beautiful places to do it, last I checked, you could not bring a drone to Vietnam, and if you did, you'd get in big trouble if you flew it there. So make sure you check before you go, because they might just confiscate the drone before you arrive or when you arrive, and then that's it. Then you don't have a drone. So Jim T is saying PSI testing is taking the Part 107 exam, only available in one of their actual facility, any Part 107 somewhere in Canada. No, there is no. You'll have definitely to come to the US. Most facilities that I've seen that do PSI testing are for the UAG. I don't think I've ever seen one that doesn't. There's like 700 of them. I'm sure there is one close to the border. There's quite a few people from Canada that come and do these, that do the 107. So, okay. Woo! Bottom of the questions. How many is that? That's a lot. 42 messages. Yeah, Jason posted 42 questions today, so it's pretty good. There's a peak I want to get video from with my Air 3 while hiking. It's about 1,000 feet up from launch point. There is a clear path to climb my drone to the peak, staying under 400 feet AGL. Is that okay? Yeah, absolutely, Destiny. Visual line of sight, 400 feet above the ground. As long as you follow the slope, absolutely not a problem. So, yeah, you're good to go. As long as you can fly in that area, obviously. What else, folks? Let me go back to the actual comment. Oh, is my volume down? Is it because I'm too far from the mic? A few people said the volume is down. Yeah, they say I'm kind of low. I'm trying this more relaxed. This is my 747 chair right here. It comes from an actual 747. It's very comfortable, but in order to sit upright, I have to be right at the tip of it. And I hurt my back this weekend, so I'm like laying back so I can be in a more comfortable position. And this was maybe a little further away. I see somebody else here. Can all drone use the same color and pattern for flight? The same colors and pattern for flight. I'm not sure what that means. Super 8 mil. Can you maybe rephrase? I mean, can they? Well, I don't understand. Do all drones? I read can. Do all drones use the same color and pattern for flight? No. Each drone is slightly different with the color that they have in the background. Some of them you can even change the color. Most of them you cannot. So no, I'm sorry, I misread the question. No, the answer is not all of them follow the same. I'm on the border of a national park and worried about going over the border of the park from my house. What do you recommend I do to ensure that I stay legal and not get a ranger knocking? Well, if you're not flying to and from national park property, you're good. You can technically overfly into a national park. So there's no reason for them to come knocking if you're flying from your own property or from outside of the park boundaries. They don't have, shouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't abuse it. I've said this before, because you can doesn't mean you should, but it doesn't sound like that's what you want to do. You're trying to avoid getting in there. I wouldn't be too worried. Can campus police restrict you from flying over the school stadium while on public property? No, they cannot. They don't control the airspace. I was part of a university for several years, helped them create policies. I had campus police trying to restrict all sorts of things, and I told them they couldn't, and they didn't like it. But no, they cannot. So I would say still be respectful, please, while you do it. But no, they cannot restrict flying from any other property than theirs. They only have the ability to restrict takeoff and landings. More questions coming in. Carl F12. What's up, Carl? Can you recommend a drone simulator for PC that someone can use to practice? Penny. Can you recommend a drone simulator for PC that someone can use to practice? I tried Zephyr at one point and found it was not very good. Interesting. Well, that's the one I would have said is Zephyr. We have an article somewhere. Let me find it for you. Drone simulator. Velocity drone is one. Yeah. Let me see. Yep, there you go. Well, I don't know if you're trying to do FPV or if you're just trying to do regular flying, but I'm going to put a link down here. I'm going to put another link right here. I know the article says 2020, but quite frankly, drone sims don't really change all that much. Two articles that you can take a look at. Best software. No, wait, another one. How can one deal with a city trying to control the airspace? Reach out to myself and then reach out to Vic Moss at the Drone Service Provider Alliance. We will contact them and we'll try to make sense of them. Not always easy, as as we found out with St. Louis, but I think we're getting somewhere. Fred Wild, how can one? Oh, I just said that. Mitchell, what is the best software or app to use to keep my logs while flying in Autel? The Autel, I'm pretty sure the Autel app keeps track of your flights. So that's what I would do personally. If you want to, you can get something like Air Data. Thank you. Names. Air Data has that. We also have a Loft Air Control that has an option with the paid premium where you can keep track of all that. So where you can link your different logins to get that information. DJI Fly Update reset most settings like maximum altitude and RTH to default. This strikes me as dangerous. Yes, absolutely, Chris. I hate it when they do that. You do a new update and then all of a sudden the whole thing is back to a default. Yeah. With that being said, because we fly drones here as a commune, everybody gets to fly the drones. Make your own little checklist that you should check all these things before you take off. It's part of the pre-flight. But yes, I agree. If it's your own drone, I've been caught with that in the past, and I hate it. Backyard says Mini 4 Pro or Avata for first drone. Experienced pilot having a hard time deciding. Great Mini 4 Pro with obstacle avoid and all the great stuff. Or get to FPV, but have to get 107. Tough call. I would say it really depends on what you're trying to do with the drone. There are two different platforms doing two different things. So if you're more into photography, videography, that's more traditional, then the Mini 4 Pro is going to be it, because taking photos with the Avata is not really what it's intended to do. But if you're looking to do more freestyle stuff and go have fun with the drone, not that the Mini 4 Pro is not fun, but like really exploring, and then FPV is going to be it. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. For a business drone, the Mini 4 Pro is going to be more versatile than the Avata. What software can I use to see what remote ID pilots are above me? So that's going to be there's Air Sentinel, and then names again. What's the other one? Whoa. Help me. Jason will put a link in the description. There's another app that we've tested. If I had my phone with me, I would pull it up. But drone scanner. Thank you. Jason just yelled it. Drone scanner available on Android and iOS, and Air Sentinel also available on. I think it's available on Android now, but don't quote me on that. They were supposed to. You said you can technically fly over a national park if you're not launching and landing from park property. Does the same hold true for national, recreational, wilderness areas? Yes, but don't do it. Don't fly over wilderness areas. Wilderness areas were put in place to protect species, usually of birds and things like that, that drones could really mess with them. I personally don't do it. Let's put it this way. You do whatever you want. It's technically legal to fly from outside into a wilderness area. I don't recommend it. I don't do it because because I don't. Okay. Woo. It's 5 o'clock somewhere here, especially. So thanks for watching. Be sure to check the Friday news update. We have a big announcement coming on Friday morning, followed by more stuff on Friday afternoon. And then next week, we'll talk about all of this. And yeah, we'll have another live event like we do every Monday. So thanks for watching. That was a lot of questions, 50 plus questions in an hour. That's not bad. That's a question a minute almost, especially with the intro and then the rant about AUVSI. So again, thanks for being here, and we will see you this Friday. No government gone wild this Friday, although there's still more government stuff going on, but we'll talk about that. All right, see you guys. But otherwise, when you have a conversation with people, you don't say, hey, Ben, hey, Ethan, hey, whatever. Who gives a shit? But otherwise, when you have a conversation with people, you don't say, hey, Ben, hey,